reading from Transcendental Diary. Volume 1. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Srila Prabhupada.
So reading from a Transcendental Diary, Sri Vrindavan Dham. Prabhupada's response was equally enthusiastic. Your report of book sales is over-encouraging. You are all becoming very, very dear to my Guru Maharaj. I started this movement by book selling. I was never a beggar for money, but I was writing books and selling. My Guru Maharaj very much liked my writing, and he used to show others in my absence. Just see how nicely he has written, how he has appreciated. He encouraged me, and my godbrothers, they also liked my writing. After I wrote that poem for Vyas Puja of my Guru Maharaj, they used to call me poet. Anyway, I was writing books and publishing BTG alone. But I could not give the thing shape. So I decided to go to the USA. And now you all nice boys and girls have helped me so much. It is all the mercy of Krishna. Thank you very much. Yashodanandana Maharaj and Achyutananda Swami are touring South India, and Prabhupada plans to meet them in Nellore in a few weeks. They are arranging programs for him in a large hall in Madras, where their party has met with a good reception. They also sent a favorable report of their book distribution. They are holding pandals, making life members and distributing the scientific basis of Krishna consciousness, written by Swarup Damodar, one of Prabhupada's disciples. Although each of their men sells only a few copies of one small book and collects 150 rupees per day, Prabhupada considers this a good beginning, and his expectations are high. There is tremendous field in India for selling books, he wrote. If you continue this effort, you will soon compete with America. Gopal Krishna is arranging to print Srimad Bhagavatam in Hindi, first canto, volume 1, 15,000 copies, also Bhagavad Gita as it is. So there is a big field. In India, 600 million people. In every home there should be at least one BBT publication, so the field is very big. The Prabhupada ki jai. But to speak of the field now, with over twice that many. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, 3rd chapter, text number 21. Hiranyakashipu's plan to become immortal. We don't have it written, right? Shataste ashina sarva dadamya surapungava matasya tehi matasya darshanam napadam mama. Translation and purport by O best of the Asuras, for this reason I am now prepared to give you all benedictions according to your desire. I belong to the celestial world of demigods, who do not die like human beings. Therefore, although you are subject to death, your audience with me will not go in vain. Everyone can please repeat. O best of the Asuras, for this reason, I am now prepared to give you all benedictions according to your design. I belong to the celestial world of demigods.
I belong to the celestial world of demigods,
Who do not die like human beings.
who do not die like human beings.
Therefore, although you are subject to death,
Therefore, although you are subjected to death,
your audience with me will not go in vain.
your audience with me will not go in vain.
It appears that human beings and asuras are subject to death, whereas demigods are not. The demigods who reside with Lord Brahma in Satyaloka go to Vaikuntha Loka in their present bodily constructions at the time of the dissolution. Therefore, although Hiranyakashipu had undergone severe austerities, Lord Brahma predicted that he had to die. He could not become immortal or even gain equal status with the demigods. The great austerities and penances he had performed for so many years could not give him protection from death. This was foretold by Lord Brahma. Om Jnana-Tinandasya Brahmana-Shakaya Chakshurum-Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Shtapitam Yena Uttale Swayam Rupakata Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prasad Nirvishesha Shri Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shiva Shari Gaur Bhakti Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama So the key words here, although you can't see them unless you have an internet verse on your cell phone or on your device, as they say nowadays. Martasya dehi martasya yamartasya. Martasya, one who is subject to death. So Lord Brahma, he could perceive what is Hiranyakashipu's, I'm trying to remember where that is. You here put that in your time, please. So, Lord Brahma has anticipated. He is practically almost immortal. He's a Gunavatar, and therefore he's empowered by Krishna. Being empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is he's one of the three Gunavatars, and therefore he has partial access to some of the attributes of Lord Vishnu that the living entity does not have. Like omnipotence. He has partial omnipotence, meaning that his power, he's very powerful all through the universe, but he's not very powerful through all universes. Just like we all heard many times the story of Lord Brahma, which is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Brahma comes to see the Lord. And when he comes, he's at the gate of Vaikuntha. He could be allowed into Vaikuntha, although he doesn't have access. Just like Durvasa Muni, he has limited access. Narada Muni has full access to Vaikuntha and limited access to Goloka Vrindavan. So it's like you get different degrees of access. Just like in the government, they have classified, you can have classified category where you can level such and such, you can go into such. I remember when I was young boy, my father, he used to sell certain types of goods, and so he got a contract with NORAD, which is, what is it, a North American, whatever, anyway, North American Defense System. So where we lived, they had this big mountain, and they have this military base, like, I forget how many, like 2,000 meters below the mountain. So that even if you dropped like 10 atomic bombs on that mountain, it wouldn't affect it. It's like, so I remember when he went in he sells certain things, we went in, we drove up, there's a big tunnel, and there's huge doors which are probably about, I don't know, maybe 5 meters thick, huge metal doors opened up, and we go in, we go down this elevator to a certain level. You could only go to a certain level. And it was like, I don't know, 25, 30 more levels. So we had that clearance. I was a little boy, as Prabhupada said, young boys and old men, but especially young children, can go anywhere. So they didn't worry too much about me. The point is that sometimes people, they like communism. They think communism is the solution to the world's problems. But we see, even in Vedic society, there's no such thing. It's very hierarchical. Not that everyone is equal. And here, Lord Brahma is saying that oh, you've done so many austerities. And we go back to the previous verses, which probably many of you didn't hear. No. So, Lord Brahma says, even saintly persons like Bhrigu, born previously, could not perform such severe austerities, nor will anyone in the future be able to do so. So he's saying, your austerities are beyond comparison. Who within the 3 worlds can sustain his life without drinking water for 100 celestial years? My dear son of Diti, with your great determination and austerity, you have done what is impossible, even for great saintly persons. And thus I have certainly been conquered by you. And I think in the previous verse he says, you've been bitten by worms and ants, they've eaten away your whole bodily, except for your bones. And yet you maintained yourself in the body. Of course, in one sense, to say that, Lord Brahma saying that means that basically saying you're just too attached to your body. Just like Srila Prabhupada says in his purport, that of course people like Brahma, their bodies are so subtle. Just like Dhruva Maharaj. He went back home, back to Godhead in his same body. Otherwise, that which was originally a material body became a spiritual body. So if Dhruva Maharaj can do that with an ordinary material body like our bodies, what to speak of the residents of Brahmaloka? So here Srila Prabhupada says, not that all demigods, someone may get the idea, he says, I belong to the celestial world of demigods. But this is a particular class of demigods that live with Lord Brahma. In the third canto of the Bhagavatam, you may remember, if you read it, and if you didn't, you won't remember, obviously, that Lord Brahma, generally speaking, Lord Brahma can ascend up to the level of Mahavishnu, which means that, he can enter into the lower regions of Vaikuntha. That's an ordinary Brahma. Our Brahma is a Krishna Bhakta, and therefore he will go to Krishna Loka. He will at least go to Dwarka. He probably won't go to, maybe his qualification could get him into the highest regions of Braj. But at least he'll go to Dwarka or to Mathura, our Brahma. And other Brahmas, at least they'll get up to Mahavishnu. At least that far. And here, it said that those people who are living with him, who may actually be more humble than he is, they may actually be, because Lord Brahma, as we can remember from the second canto, was praying to Krishna. Jnanam Paramaguyam Me. He said that this great secret of transcendental knowledge that you have revealed to me is so deep and so wonderful that I'm afraid that giving me this big position will confuse me. So therefore, when Lord Brahma went to the gatekeeper of Vaikuntha and asked to get in, he asked him, well, who are you? And of course Brahma thought, how can he not know who I am? It's like sometimes we're talking amongst one another and someone will say something and immediately our false ego says, I know that. You don't have to tell me, I know that. Just like we could come to a Bhagavatam class and if we're full of false ego, we'll just be rejecting everything that everybody said because we already know it. I heard that 3 years ago in the Bhagavad Gita class. Somebody said that story. But anything about Krishna is unlimited. But Lord Brahma, whatever degree of false ego, of course, was that our present Brahma? Was it before he became a topmost pure devotee? Maybe. And therefore he still had some false ego. Anyway, he definitely had, a problem with being questioned as who are you? Because we all think. Of course, a pure devotee, immediately, if someone said, who are you? They would immediately say, I am an insignificant servant of Krishna. They wouldn't be looking for any recognition. But Lord Brahma, he was thinking, well, how does he not know who I am? Just like Narada Muni rhetorically asked Lord Brahma, is there someone else in the universe besides you? No. You're speaking as if there was someone above you. Is there someone else? No. And of course, what to speak of the Yamadutas, they said, who are these people? We were doing our duty. We were taking Jamil giving him his due punishment for all of his sinful activities, and these effulgent personalities came along and stopped us. Is there someone in this universe that has more authority than you? No. Just like any child, if something happens, they'll go and grab the leg of their mother or their father, like they think, oh, I'm secure, I'm safe. And we think, yes, let me embrace my bank account, let me embrace my job, let me embrace my health care plan, let me embrace, and this will give me security. But no, there's no security in this material world. The only security is that I'm a devotee of Krishna, which of course is the very basis of Bhagavad Gita. And which is, Lord Brahma is actually telling Hiranyakashipu, too bad you did all this for nothing. Although he's saying, darshanam na palam. It will not go in vain. Otherwise, I'll give you some blessing.
But by saying, Martasya, you're going to die, he's ultimately saying that whatever blessings I give you, what's the use? What's the use of these material blessings? A Vaishnava? No. They think the same way, just like when Lord Chaitanya was traveling to the house of Advaitacharya to chastise him. He was going to chastise him because he was speaking Mayavad and Karma Mimamsa philosophy. No, he was teaching. Of course, he was teaching it externally. He actually taught the truth about Krishna, but the way he stated it was in such a way that it sounded like Mayavad philosophy. He actually never spoke Mayavad philosophy, but it sounded that way. And Lord Chaitanya got reports. So he was on the way, and he met a tantric sannyasi who had a lady, whatever, servant, disciple, whatever she was. So when Lord Chaitanya met him, he said, please, you're a sannyasi giving me a blessing. He said, yes, may you have a long life and a happy marriage. And Lord Chaitanya said, what kind of a blessing is this? It sounds like a curse. You know? Otherwise, for someone who wants to advance his spiritual life, this is like a curse. I want a blessing. Oh, and then, of course, the sannyasi, tantric sannyasi became very upset. You know, just see what is the nature of Kali Yuga. This impudent young Brahmin thinks he's more intelligent than me. Of course, he was more intelligent. And so, the point is Martasya. By this word, therefore I singled out this word in the verse, that being subject to death, you know, just like Rishabdev says to his sons, you know, he says that even though, I just can't remember the verse right now, even though this body is temporary, it will definitely give you suffering. Don't think that there's anything else. And of course, Srila Prabhupada said that to us when in his last days, one devotee, of course, when he came to the point where, practically speaking, he had almost no muscles. He could barely move. The muscles were almost deteriorated. And one devotee said, Prabhupada, what hurts us so much to see you in this condition, Prabhupada opened his eyes and said, don't think this won't happen to you. So this is basically what Lord Brahma is saying to Hiranyakashipu. First because it's a Vedic injunction that whenever you're going to chastise someone, first you try to say something good about them. You should say something nice about someone. This is the nature of a Vaishnava. They always want to say something, but then you don't have to make your comment. So Lord Brahma begins this way. Yes, you've done so many austerities, you've done more austerities than Bhrigu Muni could have ever done, or that anyone else could ever do in the future. No doubt about that. You've done severe austerities and penances. There's no doubt. But then now, by saying Martasya, he's saying, certainly your darshan will not go in vain. I will give you. No. He says, according to your desire, I will give you all benedictions according to your desire. Meaning, I will give you all the benedictions. I'll give you all the benedictions that I can, basically is what he's saying. And of course, he also says, Asura Pungava, the best of the Asura. Which means, because you're an Asura, you're Martasya, you're going to die. And of course, Hiranyakashipu didn't like hearing this. He had his plan, as the title of this chapter. Hiranyakashipu's plan to become immortal. So Lord Brahma, he finally got access to Krishna. And Krishna recreated a vision where Lord Brahma came in, and there were all kinds of Brahmas, some with 8 heads, some with 12 heads, some with 100 heads, all bowing down to him. It's not that they were all there. No. Not that they were. Krishna created this. Not that all the Brahmas came just to teach our Brahma one lesson, but Krishna can create such a thing. And Lord Brahma immediately understood, that who am I? Who am I? But Hiranyakashipu, Brahma was hoping that when he heard this, Martasya, you're going to die. Yes, I'll give you a new body. I'll give you, great strength and power. All these things that you're wanting, I can see them within your heart. I'll give you all these things. But he's directly denying right here. And of course later on he'll say, I can't give you immortality because I myself don't have immortality. Although he's saying here, in one sense, he does have immortality. Just like Arjuna, just like Krishna says to Arjuna, Najayate mrite bhagatachi, that no one is born and no one dies. So in that sense, I'm immortal, and because I'm in Brahmaloka, because I've done all these austerities and penances, and because I'm worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I may not even die in this body. But he says, I'm not immortal, meaning I'm not going to remain in this material world in this body. This is the conception of immortality that Lord Brahma is defeating. I'm not going to remain in this same body eternally. What to speak of you? You're coming to me for something. Just like Prakasura came to Lord Shiva, thinking that I can get something greater from Shiva than he has. He was thinking like that he will give me the power that I can kill him. And so this is something that Srila Prabhupada referred to again and again, that one should not think, let me take a guru and then I'll step on his head and go beyond. Which of course Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada basically rejected 3 disciples that I know of. And all 3 of them because they wanted to go beyond Prabhupada. Prabhupada rejected them. How can you think that I can go beyond you? How can you think this way? So Lord Brahma is basically saying that you think I'm not immortal. And he's saying it right here. Even though I'm amartasya, I will not die, and you will not die. He's also giving a hint there that if you have the proper consciousness, if you follow the proper program, you also will understand, just as Krishna is preaching to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, that Nitya Shokya Shariri Naha, that the embodied soul will never die. Never die. Even in he says, Ajo Nitya Sashvato, that he says, Najayate Mriyate, you're never born, and then he says again, Aja. He emphasizes 2 times in the same verse, you're never born. You were never born. You think that you were born because you've accepted a material body, but you're never born, and you'll never die. So, Brahma is telling Hiranyakashipu, but Hiranyakashipu cannot understand. He could not capture what Lord Brahma is thinking here. He's thinking, no, let me make enough preparation. Just like we tell everyone, chant Hare Krishna. Every time we do a program in public, we say, this is the solution. You chant this holy name of Krishna. We put it on billboards, we have it in our books, we distributed so many thousands and thousands of books here in Trinidad, millions and millions of books all over the world. But still people don't understand. And just like Yudhishthir said to Dharmaraj or Yamaraj, that when he was asked what is the most wonderful thing, he says, Ahanyahani Bhutani. that I'm amazed that everyone has seen that their great-grandfather died, that their grandfather died, that their father will die. Oh, he's getting old. But they're thinking, I will not die. This is the most amazing thing. And we may think this is an amazing thing, but we're also guilty of the same crime. Because even though we know theoretically that I will die, we know theoretically that I am a spirit soul, and we chant Hare Krishna, and we do so many things, but the majority of us are still thinking, making so many plans to enjoy this material world, to live within this material world, to become secure in this material world. Even though we've heard again and again, and here we're hearing it again, and we'll hear it again in a few more verses and a few more verses, and we'll hear it again and again and again and again, that there's no happiness in this world, there's no security in this world, there's no benefit to material existence. Even though we hear it again and again and again and again, we still make our plan. Even the renunciants, they'll still be making their plan. Of course, we have to make plans how to preach Krishna consciousness, how to give Krishna consciousness to others. With that plan, because that plan is eternal. Because that plan includes the understanding that everyone must serve Krishna. That plan is not a material plan. Such plans are the proper plans that we should be making. Just like anyone who's a grihastha, they have to make plans for the security of their family. Srila Prabhupada said, good government means two things. Two basic elements have to be there for good government. People have to be happy, and people have to feel secure. If they don't have these two things, it's not good government. Now we can see the present government anywhere in the world that these two things are not there. They may be a little bit materially happy some of the time, but they feel no security. Of course, in some countries, I guess, it may think they feel a little more security. But again and again and again, Krishna shows that that security is not there. I mean, not that he shows it through the Bhagavatam. No. It's amazing that we hear this Bhagavatam every day, or at least theoretically we do. We hear the Bhagavatam every day, but we continue with material consciousness. So therefore, a devotee has to make some plans. Yes, my family, we're going to do this, we're going to do natural. Natural thing to do, but the main plan should be how can we be more Krishna conscious. That should be the main plan. That should be the main emphasis. And then gradually, with as our material existence continues and transpires, we will come to the understanding, the firm understanding, that actually, what is the use of this plan? That's called vanaprastha. A vanaprastha stage means, as Srila Prabhupada said, vanaprastha should happen at the midpoint in one's life. 50 years. We're supposed to live for 100 years because most of us probably won't live for 100 years, especially on a doubles diet. Probably won't live 50 years if you eat too many doubles. But anyway, but whatever it is, we should think that maybe I'll live for 70 years, maybe 80. So at least by the time I'm 40, and I should be really making serious plans to be more Krishna conscious. Because by the time you're 40, generally speaking, a normal person will already be married, will already have some children. So you've already done that. Why continue to do it more and more and more? Therefore, because I do have family attachment, therefore let me prepare my children to become more Krishna conscious. Therefore let me, myself together with my wife or my husband, let us become more Krishna conscious. Not that we'll do it all in one day, or I just heard that Bhagavatam class, so now, from tomorrow on we'll live like, like Vamsi does Babaji. No. But at least I understand this is what I have to do. Once we have that firmly fixed in my mind, this is what I have to do. At the end of this lifetime, I want to be a pure devotee. Therefore, let me begin to take the necessary steps to do so. Not at the minimum. One of the biggest problems we have here in Trinidad, or anywhere in the world, is that we think, let me do the minimum. Let me do the minimum of Krishna conscious activities to get by. But what is the minimum? Well, even the minimum, 16 rounds, follow 4 regulated principles, do some service for Krishna, convert one's life, as Bhagavad Gita instructs us, into an offering to Krishna. So, that's the minimum. And most of us don't even do that. Most of us, I know there's many devotees, probably the majority, who don't chant 16 rounds a day. They don't have time. Work, study, this, that. And we think that when I finish these studies, then I'm going to chant 16 rounds. And we may do it for some time. But then another thing happens. Oh, lost my job. No. Now I have to work two less paying jobs to get the same. And therefore I can't chant, or I can't do this, or I have no time for the Bhagavatam, or I have no time for Bhagavad Gita, or I have no time for, just like some people say, well, I'm not a Brahmin. I'm not a Brahmin, so what, why should I be so absorbed in the Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita? But as Srila Prabhupada explains, even in Vedic times, for the benefit of Shudras, Mlecchas, Yavanas, everyone, that the Brahmins would speak, or they would have plays about Mahabharata and Ramayana. So everyone in society, even the lower, they would see this is the actual goal in life. The actual goal in life is to understand Krishna or Rama and worship them. So this is basically what Lord Brahma is doing here. Another important thing, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Dasyante Jagya Bhavita. He says in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita that the demigods, Dasyante, they're forced to give benediction. And therefore, Hiranyakashipu, Lord Brahma says, I have certainly been conquered by you, in the previous verse. Because he's forced. Just like Lord Shiva was forced by the austerities of Brikasura, were actually distasteful to us. He was actually disgusted. He was disgusted by it. If somebody does something disgusting to you, will you want to help them? No. Somebody comes up to you and hits you in the nose and says, excuse me, could you help me? Yeah, sure, why not? Why don't you hit me again so I'll be more convinced? We wouldn't do that. And so, but this is basically what Brikasura did to Lord Shiva. He did this, peeling off his skin. You can imagine like peeling a potato. Just peel off all your skin and throw it into the jagya. It was disgusting. But Lord Shiva basically gave him a blessing just to stop him. It was so obnoxious and so horrible what he was doing. Definitely not what we're required to do. And so basically also Lord Brahma is doing the same thing here. This austerity, although unparalleled, has no spiritual value. That's basically what it's saying here. It has no spiritual value. Austerity and penance is just like Srila Prabhupada mentions in several conversations, that sometimes politicians do the austerity of only sleeping 2-3 hours a day because they're so wrapped up in their business. Or so many people do all kinds of austerities. They won't eat, they won't sleep, just to accomplish their material goals. But are they considered great devotees? The six Goswamis of Vrindavan, they did greater austerity. Of course, not like, in one sense, almost the same as Hiranyakashipu, because they neglected their material bodies. Not out of voluntary or conscientious neglect, but the neglect was they were so absorbed in Krishna that they didn't want to eat. Just like if we don't eat, like if somebody doesn't eat on Ekadashi or some other fast day, it's not always that we're doing that because we're so absorbed in Krishna that we forget about eating. So because we say, oh no, today's a fast day. Somehow or another I have to make it till midday, which is not so hard. But what to speak of Gaur Purnima, I have to make it till 7 o'clock or Ram Navami. Or what to speak of Janmashtami, I have to make it till midnight. So we're thinking like that. Not like the six Goswamis, that they don't eat because they're so absorbed in Krishna, that they forget about eating. It's a botheration to eat because I'm so absorbed in Krishna that I don't. Sometimes we may think about, just like people go to the doctor and he gives them a certain prescription. And sometimes you're busy, you forget to take your pills or something. It's for your benefit, but you forget. So eating is for the material benefit of the body, and sleeping. But if you're so absorbed in Krishna, like the six Goswamis, or like Gaur Kishoredas Babaji, you forget. None of us will forget about eating, that's for sure. But even sometimes, even materialistic people, they get so absorbed in their material activities, or children playing. Sometimes they forget to eat. And they need to eat more than anyone because their bodies are growing. But they forget to eat because they're so absorbed in playing. So if a young child that's, 5 years old can forget about eating, why can't we forget about eating? Why can't we forget about sleeping? Of course, Prabhupada told us we should eat nicely and sleep nicely to serve Krishna. But the fact is that when one becomes so absorbed, just like Srila Prabhupada himself, he was so absorbed in his mission to satisfy the desire of his Guru Maharaj that Krishna consciousness should be spread all over the world. And he also forgot about sleeping. It's not that Prabhupada had to sit there and fight, oh, I'm so tired. And people, like sometimes in school, especially university, students will cram for the exams, so they don't sleep one night or 2 nights because they have to really study. Some of them take amphetamines or 10 cups of coffee or something, so they can study and try to understand this, subject matter better. But that's not like forgetting. Not that they forgot to do it. It's just that they have something that's more important. So at least our Krishna consciousness should be on that platform. That even though we may not forget certain material activities, we should be willing to at least forego certain material activities. We should be at least willing to do that. Because my first priority is to chant the Holy Name. My first priority, among my first priorities, is to serve Krishna. I have to do some meaningful service for Krishna. Something. And if we have these priorities, then gradually we'll come to the platform also that we're not interested in these material activities. We're not even interested in eating and sleeping. And we just have to do it as an austerity. But it's not what we want to do. And we just do it in order to maintain his body so he can serve Krishna. Because if we develop that mentality, then when the time comes that this material body cannot function properly, then we will think, what's the use of eating and sleeping? Otherwise, let me eat less, sleep less, and chant more. Because my material body, in any case, is not, of course we have to take care of it to some degree. But we'll come to the point, every one of us will come to the point where the material body just practically doesn't function. And at least when we come to that point, we have to be absorbed enough in the holy name that we can just chant and hear. And that will be totally satisfying. We don't even think about eating. We don't even think about sleeping. We have to do it to some degree maybe, but it's actually an austerity. At least we have to come to that point if we want to leave this material world and go back home after God. So, therefore Lord Brahma, he says, Darshanam na palam mama. Your darshan for me will not go unrewarded. Basically that's what he's saying, although Srila Prabhupada translates it, it will not go in vain. It will go in vain. But it won't, from the material point of view of me giving you some benefits, in that sense of giving you some benefits, it won't go in vain. I'll give you some benefits. But for your desire, it will be totally in vain. What you really want, what you want to accomplish ultimately, it was completely in vain, completely useless, 100% useless. This is what he wants to transmit. So sometimes we say the same thing to people. When we preach Krishna consciousness, we say, yes, you can chant to be happy. But actually you can chant to be happy. But with your present mentality, it will be very difficult for you to chant and be happy. Because your conception of happiness means something that is created by an effort within the material energy. That type of happiness will probably not come from chanting. Although it can also. Also material, just like Prasad Maharaj, which is coming into the scene later on in this canto. He actually chanted and became materially happy. And many great personalities. Dhruva Maharaj, he became materially happy. Priyabrata, because of his austerities in becoming a brahmachari and worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he became materially happy. Kardama Muni, by his mystic power, he achieved material happiness. His mystic power was within the realm of devotional service. But that wasn't his objective. All of those devotees, that was not their objective. As long as your objective is to be materially happy, then chanting will not produce that happiness. But if your purpose is to please Sri Guru and Gauranga, then even by this process of Krishna consciousness, you can become materially successful and spiritually. But if your goal is to become materially successful, then it probably won't work. Otherwise, by chanting, if you think, by chanting I will become materially successful. Although I do tell people sometimes, by chanting, by becoming very Krishna conscious, you can also become materially successful, which is true. But if that's your goal, if that's your main goal, then it will not happen. But if it's because I have this material body and I have certain desires, as Krishna says, akama sarva kama va moksha kama udarati tivrena bhakti yogina. If you serve Krishna very faithfully and very intensely, even though you have some material desires, those material desires will come about. They'll actually be able to be fulfilled, but in such a way that you will continue to advance. Maybe not in the same way that you want them to be fulfilled, but they will be fulfilled to some degree. Because you have that desire and because you're putting that desire in Krishna's hands. Krishna, I have this desire. What can I do? I'm repentant because I still have a desire for sense gratification. And every time I fall into that mentality, I feel some repentance. I want to be your pure devotee. At least if we have that much Krishna consciousness, and we strive to become a pure devotee by getting up early in the morning, chanting the holy name, just like I mentioned yesterday, that the three things that Srila Prabhupada said, and I can, more than any other thing other than you're not this body, and were get up early, go to Mangalarti, chant the holy name. These three things. Prabhupada said more than any other thing. So at least if we get up early, we may not get up at 3, maybe we'll get up at 4 or 5, whatever. But we get up early, we chant the holy name. We have a Mangalarti, even though it may not be the Mangalarti in the temple. We have Mangalarti in our home. Even if it's a 5-minute Mangalarti. It doesn't have to be 25 minutes. So that would be better. But at least let it be 5 or 10 minutes of chanting the holy name, worshiping the Lord, even with just incense and a flower. At least that much. Do for Krishna every day in your home. And if you do that, then you'll become spiritually strong. And you hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. You may not hear 1 hour of Bhagavatam, but at least hear 5 or 10 minutes of it. At least hear 5 or 10 minutes or more of Bhagavad Gita. And then you will acquire the taste to hear more and more. And apply that knowledge of Gita and Bhagavatam to my daily life. At least that much. And then you can progress spiritually. Otherwise, we'll all be like Hiranyakashipu. And in spite of all the good instructions, we won't hear it. As Chanakya Pandit said, you give good instructions to a fool and he becomes angry. And this also happens. Sometimes even the guru gives instructions to the disciple, but because they're so attached, they become upset. He's unreasonable. This is not reasonable. This is not logical. Why does he want me to chant so much? Why does he want me to give up my material desires? It's natural. Everybody has material desires. So even that happens in the minds of disciples, but to speak of materialistic people. So our duty is to become Krishna conscious, to be Krishna conscious. And if we don't do it, then we will have the same fate as Hiranyakashipu, and probably with less degree of material success. He was very successful materially because of his austerities. But whatever austerities and penances you do in this life, they will bear fruit, just like Lord Brahma says, papalam, napalam. They will not be without fruit. But what will that fruit be? The fruit of material happiness is material distress. Otherwise, if you become materially happy, of course, Pundarik Vidyanidhi, he was very wealthy, and Lord Chaitanya was crying out for him. But his material happiness was simply a disguise to keep people from honoring him. That was his main purpose for maintaining his wealth. It wasn't like, I want to be wealthy, I want to be wealthy. He was thinking, if I'm wealthy like this, then no one will bother me with, just like Gorkishore does Babaji. He would tell people, don't bother me with your petty material desires. If you want to go back home, back to Godhead, I will spend all day and all night with you. But if you want some material blessing, then go away. That's why sometimes he would chant in a latrine, or chant or do something that materialistic people would find unpleasant, so that they would not bother him, and he could perform his devotional service. So we should also be like that. People should understand that if you want my friendship, it's based on Krishna, not based on something. Because sometimes we have to maintain some superficial relationship with people. But our real relationship should be one of compassion and love and devotion. and wanting to help them to come to some degree of Krishna consciousness. Even our own family members, sometimes their children, they may not be devoted. This happened. Or they may be like some kind of devotee, but with no spiritual ambition. So we show them love, compassion, but we will continue to give them, at least by our own example, Krishna consciousness. At least that much. Even if we can't, even if they don't listen to us, we can still give them that example. And then I guarantee that someday, if you give them that example, and you don't be fanatical with them and try to force them to do something that they just don't want to do, then at some point in their life, they will become Krishna conscious. More Krishna conscious than they are now. And most likely, if they were born into Krishna consciousness, that at some point in their life, they will actually take up the process of pure devotional service. This is our guarantee. Anyway, these are some points on this verse. I'll stop here. Any question? Comment? Yes.
Sometimes, if not very often, we emphasize doing service as opposed to what are we becoming, how are we progressing, are we becoming, are we developing Vaishnava qualities. We tend to emphasize the performance of service.
Just like any work, if I have an employee, I tell them you have to work, but then I have to give them the conditions under which the work has to be performed. It's like I can't just tell someone, I want you to do this work, but there has to be also certain type of training. Just like I made the point several times, maybe here, that I remember one devotee, they worked in Disney World, and they told me that he had to go through 3 months of training on how to deal with people. You would think, well, if I have to go be a duck and, wear a duck suit in Disney World, then, how much training does that require? And that's what this devotee was doing, in a Donald Duck suit, But the point was that they had to learn how to deal with all kinds of situations. Like people complain about this, and you have to be a happy duck. You can't be can't say, get out of my face. And so you have to have the proper attitude. So also when we tell people to do service, we also have to train them or help them understand what are the conditions under which that service will become meaningful and will reap the greatest benefit. Just like you can tell someone, if you work like this, I'll pay you this much. But if you give them an incentive, well, if you do this, you'll get a commission and fringe benefits, and that's the incentive. So the incentive to do service also, we have to explain to people what are the benefits, and also under what conditions, otherwise what type of mentality, what type of consciousness you need to have so that service will bear the fruit that you want to obtain, that you read in Prabhupada's books and you say, if I do devotional service, I'll go back home, back to Godhead, or if I do devotional service, I'll have these kinds of pleasures, spiritual pleasures. So therefore we have to not just tell them to do service, but to help them understand with what type of consciousness I need to have so that service will give the greatest benefit. Because otherwise, people come and do service, but sometimes it's minimal, and sometimes it's conditional, and sometimes it just doesn't manifest, because they're not feeling the benefit. And the main reason they're not feeling the benefit is because they don't have the right devotional attitude. So we have to give them that. And this is the real training in Krishna consciousness. Anybody can come and wash the floor. We can pay somebody, I don't know, what do you pay somebody to come and, we could pay somebody right out the street, come and clean the floor, wash the pots. Of course, we can't do that on the altar, but we can do many things we can do here. But will there, and there'll be some benefit that they come and they see the deity and they see Prabhupada and they're doing something in a temple, even though they're getting paid. There'll be some little benefit. But to clean the floor with the proper consciousness, to come in here, and just like I remember when I was a young boy, there was a movie called No Time for Sergeants. Very funny comedy movie. And it was about this very simple person who joined the army. Very simple country, from the countryside. And so he was so simple and not so smart that the sergeant in charge of him was giving him all the worst things to do. And so but he was so simple and so, such a nice person that he thought it was a great privilege. So he was put in charge of cleaning the bathroom. And he cleaned the bathroom so nicely that when the higher superior came to inspect the place, he promoted him above the sergeant. So the point is that if we have that kind of simplicity in devotional service, that we can, we clean the floor and we think this is so wonderful. I love cleaning this floor for Krishna. Then cleaning that floor will be the same as decorating the deity. We'll have the same benefit. But if we think, oh, I got to clean the floor, then the benefit will be very minimal. If I have to wash the pot, nobody, most people just don't think, Prabhu, can you wash the pots? Jai! It usually doesn't happen that way. But if we can really come to that point where somebody says, you wash the pots, oh, this is wonderful service, then we will make just as much advancement by washing those pots as by speaking about the Bhagavatam, addressing the deity, going out and distributing books. We will get the same benefit, not just some benefit in the future, but we'll feel that Krishna conscious happiness. So we have to try to instill within everyone this spirit of devotional service. Any other questions? Yes.
With all our problems with the Kali Yuga and trying to maintain a spiritual scenario where we can advance, how does Lord Nityananda, how do we incorporate a prayer to him? Is that the person we go to get us through the day? Could you just elaborate on what I'm trying to bring up? How does Lord Nityananda come into this? How does he have? Why do they mention him all the time as a person, as the go-to person for when you have a problem?
Well, it's not that we, it doesn't have to be Lord Nityananda, it can be Lord Nityananda's representative. Lord Nityananda represents the mercy principle, because Lord Chaitanya came to give mercy, and therefore Nityananda, being his first servant and his most faithful servant, manifested more mercy. There's one purport where Srila Prabhupada mentions, I can't remember if it's a purport or a class that I read, it's an lecture. But Prabhupada says that the further down you are in the parampara, the more mercy you get. Just like Kala Krishna Das, he got the mercy of being Lord Chaitanya's personal servant, but he couldn't take advantage of it. And he was carried away by the gypsies, and then Lord Chaitanya had to come and save him. But if we have the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, then we have more mercy. And if we have the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda, and the six Goswamis, and we have more mercy. And if we have the mercy of the whole parampara, all the acharyas, then we have more mercy. That's what the Nityananda principle is. But our false ego tries to do the opposite. We try to avoid as many authorities as possible. Why follow Prabhupada? I'll follow Rupa Goswami. Just like so many Babajis and Vrindavan, they don't accept Bhaktivinoda Thakur. They don't accept Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Why? Because they're not coming in a seminal line of caste Goswami. And they don't accept it. Although the knowledge that Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given is so great, just unbelievable. And someone else may be a scholar, and they may be able to say so many things, and they may be able to take so many things from the 6 Goswamis, but they won't be able to say it. I read a few passages from some of these scholars, just to understand what they're saying, and it's very intellectual, full of all kinds of quotes, but the feeling of explaining it in terms of Lord Chaitanya's mission of saving the fallen conditioned soul, it's not there. It's not there. I could only read a few pages. I couldn't read any more, because just you don't feel that extreme mercy and compassion coming from Nityananda. Any other questions?
As you mentioned, Maharaj, the holy morning rising and telling the Mangalati, that the glories of the devotees are very fortunate to try and rise early telling the Mangalati. With that, it's within you feel a difference, and you are able to deal with people more loving, more compassionate, and it gives you strength that really can't comprehend, but you know that there's something that keeps you there. Nothing else in the material keeps you Maharaj. Comes to reminding us that
Krishna's compassion is manifest everywhere, in everything that happens to everyone in their lives. Even if it's in the form of war, disease, just like one godbrother I was speaking to yesterday, he's having all kinds of heart problems. He may not even survive. And he said, this is the most wonderful thing that ever happened to me in my life. He said, because for the first time it's forcing me beyond any personal consideration just to surrender to Krishna. So we have to see compassion in that way. We like to see compassion when it comes in a certain way, and when it comes in another way, I don't like that. That compassion is not so nice. But when we can see the Lord's mercy in everything that's happening in our existence, then we can take full advantage of Krishna's compassion. So anyway, we'll stop here, and thank you all very much. All glory to Shri Guru, Shri Guru, Shri Prabhupada.